Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to The Book Refuge and welcome to another weekly reading wrap-up. I always start my camera in the wrong place. Whatever, I don't do checks for things. Anyway, so yes, welcome to another weekly reading wrap-up. I'm going to try to go quickly with this because here's the thing. I did turn off the air conditioner because when I do a full video, I try to turn it off. Even though when I have vlog clips, I'll keep it on because it's so hot. But, North Dakota, we don't usually stay too warm, but there's always a week or two where we're in the triple digits and everything's melting down. So I haven't turned my air off for 72 hours because once the heat starts to warm my apartment, we're cooked. We're done for. There's no way that the air can keep up. So I'm filming this as early in the day as I can. I got up super early to go to the gym. It was still 80 degrees already at 7:30. Got home. Well, I went grocery shopping, got home, showered, put my makeup on, and then I'm like, I need to film this as soon as I can because I can't have the air off for very long. So we're going to dive into this. I think I read, there's 3 books there. I read 15 books in this last week. The first 3 books that I'm going to talk about, well, the 4 books, I actually read them for a weekend reading vlog that I did last weekend. And what I did is I read new releases. So you can go ahead and check that vlog out for more details on them, but I will tell you what they are just in case you didn't want to read, watch the vlog. But I read Filthy Hot by Serena Akeroyd. This is book 5 in the Filthy Feckers. This one is kind of a second chance romance. It's about a journalist and one of the 5 Points men. And they actually met 5 years ago when she was kind of discovering something that kind of shocked and shook the world of our 5 Points men. And he was supposed to end her, but instead he couldn't kill her and he just kind of took away the information that she could share, but she's wanted him this whole time. And now their time has finally come. And there was also some very serious things that came to fruition in this one. There's a trigger warning page at the beginning of this book that Serena Akeroyd put in, and I read it a couple times in my vlog because I was just so touched by it. But there is trigger warnings for child sexual abuse and assault. There is trigger warnings of assault and talk of attempted suicide or suicide in there. So definitely check those out. This one had some heavy topics, but it was also so satisfying to me because there was some things that came to fruition in this book that have been building since the beginning. So again, more thoughts on that, check out the blog. Then there was A Kiss for, I gave that 5 stars, sorry. Then there was A Kiss for a Kiss by Helena Hunting. This is book 4 in the All In series. She kind of added it at the end. This is about the parents of the couple from the last book. So it's Hannah and Jake, and they are both over 40, and this is a kind of like last chance pregnancy book. They have been messing around, and Hannah actually thinks she's going through menopause, and she ends up pregnant. And they both have had unexpected pregnancies before because both of their kids who got married were unplanned pregnancies, and Hannah has tried to have kids. She was in a marriage for like 15 years where they tried to have kids and they couldn't. So there are trigger warnings for miscarriage and infertility issues in this book. It was very beautiful. I only gave it 3.5 stars though because this to me was not Helena Hunting's best. The emotional payoffs in this book were very good, but I just feel like it was kind of a neutered version of one of her books. And it didn't quite work for me. I'm sorry. There was a lot of fade to black. There was a lot of just like the details of being pregnant, which I love, but I needed it mixed in with more than it was. So this was still a beautiful entry. I still teared up a couple times, but comparing it to the last book in the series, A Secret for a Secret, which was a 6-star read for me last year, this just didn't hold up the same way. But I do love older love, and there was a lot to love about this book. It missed for me. Then I read Mr. Garcia by TL Swan. This is her new release. This one was an age gap, second chance romance. This is a book that has a before and an after. Again, I go into a lot about this book that in TL Swan fashion, woman dropped some crazy twists into this book. It's a very long book, and it was, wow, it was a lot. Our heroine first meets Sebastian when she's going to law school. She's 25. She's just been divorced and she kind of has nothing. And Sebastian is this businessman, and they meet at her first day at this coffee shop, and they're kind of flirting with each other, and he keeps coming back for her coffee even though she's making horrible coffee. He also has gotten out of a pretty rough marriage, and so they're flirting a lot. And then our heroine, and I'm saying our heroine because I forgot what her name is. That happens to me when I have a lot of people in my head. She hears from a friend that she could work at this place called the Escape Room Club or whatever, and be one of their escape girls and make a lot of money. And so she figures out that if she works like 4 shifts there, she could pay her rent for the rest of the time that she's in law school. And who should be there but Sebastian? And so he's pretty pissed to find her there, which is a double standard because he's going there to pay for time with a woman and she's the one providing it. However, I don't want to like spoil things, but we definitely get into his issues and why he's being a hypocrite about that and like what's going on, okay? But for the first part of the book, when we're in the past time, I was like, Sebastian, you're such a douche. But that's part of the journey you go on with TL Swan. She has complicated, dark men. And she even has a warning at the beginning of the book. She's like, this is not a cinnamon roll. This is not like, this is a hard, tough guy to love, and know that. So then something happens, right? And there's a 6-year time jump. Now, I say this in my vlog. I hate time jumps like that. I usually prefer us to start the story at the latest possible time and then do flashbacks if we're going to do those at all. I just don't enjoy them. However, because of what happens, what goes down that separates these two, there was no way that there couldn't have been time apart, because what goes down is so monumental and colossal that there's no way you could just get over it in a short amount of time. So I was okay with it, which is strange because I'm normally not, but it's TL Swan. So I was hooked in for the ride no matter what. And then they happen to run into each other again when now Sebastian is the Deputy Prime Minister of the UK, and our heroine is going to be on his legal team. And they run into each other again. And we're going to go on a wild ride with them. And so I gave this 4.5 stars. Really liked it. And then the last book that I read for that vlog, and the first of my official June reads, was When Heroes Fall by Giana Darling. This was a new release. This is one of the books that's going to be provided as a prize in the Mafia readathon that's happening. This is part of a duet, and the second one comes out the end of June. So it's like you get the first one the end of May, and this one's coming out the end of June. And I loved it. I loved it. Being completely transparent, and I say this in my vlog again, I have only read one of the previous books of this because this is part of her, what are they called? The Lombardi world. And so there's 4 Lombardi siblings, and all of them kind of get their story. The first one is the Evolution of Sin trilogy, which is about Giselle and Sinclair. And then there is the Enthralled duet, which is about Alexander and, I can't remember her name, but the other sister. And then this one is about Dante and Helena. Now, Helena is a sister that we meet in the first series who gets cheated on. And then Dante is a friend of her other sister, who I can't remember her name, I'm sorry, who she doesn't end up with. So this duet is called The Anti-Heroes in Love, and they both are anti-heroes. Dante is a capo of the New York Camaro of the New York Camorra. And he is being charged with racketeering and murder. And Elena's sister asked her to represent him. And so she's on his legal team. This ends up being a forced proximity. He is on an ankle monitor. He ends up getting out on bail, but he's on an ankle monitor. And so what does he do? He buys out this whole like apartment complex and moves all of his men in with him, not in the same, but in the building, so that he can still do his business without breaking his court order, which is just brilliant to me. Dante is a kind of capo, a kind of mob man that I have never read before. He is so boisterous and jovial, and he does business with a smile. And I mean, that doesn't mean he's not dangerous, but he is affectionate and caring and looks out for his people. And when Helena is forced to stay there and be the counsel who's staying in his home with him, which if you squint a little, that doesn't make sense, but he decides that he wants Helena. Helena has a lot going on. She really wants a baby, but she has had an ectopic pregnancy before, so one of her ovaries is gone, and she also cannot experience orgasms. So at the beginning of this book, we're finding out that there's a surgery that she can do so that she'll be able to experience orgasm, as well as make it possible for her to try to get pregnant. So that is a lot of emotional weight to be put on, but also Helena comes off so hard and bitchy, but right from the beginning, I'm on her side, and I see where all that hurt and all those crusty pieces come from. Though her family isn't the mafia, they definitely have had ties to the mafia in the past, and it's something she's always wanted to be away from, and she wants to be on the side of the law. But she is a defense attorney, and she is called to represent this capo, and he's so charming and charismatic, and part of her prickliness just comes from that she's been hurt by people who loved her sister fucking her fiance, and then having a baby with him, you know, and those are the things she wanted. And the man that she thought she would have them with has them with her sister. So I will say this, I don't know that I'll ever make it through the Evolution of Sin trilogy. Like, I own it, and I want to, but I also don't. Because after reading this book, I love Helena so much that there's nothing but hate that I would have for Sin and Giselle. So how could I read that book? Like, I just don't know how I could read that book at all. I think Giselle's her name, right? Because what's the other sister? I don't know. I'm probably butchering the names. The people I care about is Helena and Dante. And the way that Dante seduces her, he's so blatant about it. Like, it isn't like he's being sneaky, but he's also just, you couldn't help but be in love with him. And the way that he decides he's going to win Helena, it's amazing. So this book is part of a duet, but it does end with kind of a happy for now. So know that. There's like a cliffhanger, but it's not a cliffhanger where you're dangling by your fingertips. And the next one will be coming soon. So I understand if you want to wait till that one's out, but I read this and I was like satisfied with like where they are emotionally anyway. There's still a lot of things up in the air because, I mean, he is on trial for murder and racketeering. So there's that. Okay, I gave that 5 stars in case you were wondering. I loved it. Then I read Fearless Like Us. This one isn't in my vlog, so now we're done with the ones that were in the vlog, but this was another new release. This is by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is book 9 in the Like Us series, The Billionaires and Bodyguards. And guys, I was so excited to read this one. Well, that's the wrong thing. I was intrigued and excited to read it. But I don't want to talk about it too much. I ended up giving it 3 stars. And I think part of it for me is that these two just write books that are way too long. And so much doesn't happen in them. Like, I'm very intrigued by this. This is an MFM. It's an age gap. It's a bodyguard and client relationship. You do kind of have to have read all the other books in the series. And if you never heard, like, Krista and Becca Ritchie have some books that I absolutely love. And I was first introduced to them through the Like Us series, actually, because the first 3 books in this series are about a male-male couple, and that's a bodyguard and a client. And through them, then I found all the backlist of them. That's like about the parents of these kids and everything. And I just love that. But I do feel like, even though I'm someone who loves getting to see couples together, and I love when there's another book and another book, like, this is a series that it's their whole brand at this point. Like, they're not going to stop writing these. They have it mapped out all the way through book 13 in this series already. And I explained it to my friend Crystal that these books are like my Kardashians. I open the pages, I know that I'm going to be unsatisfied and slightly shocked by the end of it, but I still pick them up and read them, and I had a reasonable time. But even when there'll be nuggets of things that I really love, like the conversations that we're going to have and what's happening, there's so much in there that just drains me of energy that then I'm like, well, okay. So that happened. Cool. So I gave this 3 stars. Then I read Duchess by Design by Maya Rodale. So this led to some interesting things. So Crystal and I, we have a book club together called the Rake Appreciation Society. We've been doing it since November, and I love it. I love getting to chat with my best friend. I mean, I talk with her every day, but I love getting to chat with my best friend about books, and I love that we have a community of you that we read them with. And when we choose our books, we try to pick authors we haven't read before. We try to pick books that we've seen around and we want to talk about. And so we made kind of 2 mistakes with this one. Number 1, we didn't really have heard much about this author. Like, there was like one of the books in the series we'd heard about, and that's the one we ended up picking. Well, it turned out that it was book 3 in this trilogy. So we were like, oh, well, we should read the other 2 first, and the people in our book club will probably do that as well. So we did. And I didn't like them. It seemed like a watered down Joanna Shupe or Sarah MacLean for me, with the issues it was trying to tackle. And I ended up just being really drained by the story and very upset with the heroine because, and we both kind of agreed with this. I mean, you'll have to check her videos to see her opinions. I don't want to speak for her, but we both felt that it was pretty heavy-handed feminism. And now I don't mind that. I know sometimes I say I do, but I feel like it's because when I read, particularly in a historical, I want it to feel natural. Like, I want to be rooting with the women when they're telling men, like, hey, you know, that doesn't really make sense. You know, this is the way we should do it. But in this one, it was so slamming me over the head that the heroine was literally shooting her happiness in the foot constantly. And with a hero who was willing to listen and learn. That's the part that was tough for me. It's not like we were dealing with a hero who was just like, oh, women, you're so cute. Like, he was honestly listening and learning and trying to be an ally in different ways. And she still just kept slapping him upside the face with, like, being a duchess for you isn't enough. Even though he was willing to honestly, at a point, he was willing to sacrifice the legacy of his dukedom to make her happy and to help further her goals. And she still just couldn't accept it, you know? And so by the end of the happily ever after for this book, I know that I haven't even told you what this book is about. I wanted him to leave her. And whenever that happens, I know that I'm not on board with people. And there was a certain point in this book where I messaged Krista, I was like, this is a 2-star book for me. And then I warmed up a little and I was like, okay, I'll give it a 3, but it was close to a 2 for me. But the point of this one is there's a girl who is a dressmaker, and this is in New York. This is a Gilded Age romance, and our hero is a duke. He's come to find an heiress because he needs it to save his estate. We've heard this dance before. And he mistakes her for an heiress because she's coming out of the heiress's room having done a dress fitting for her. And she lets him believe it. They go on a walk in the park and he's like, this could be it. I like this woman. She's beautiful and smart and she's an heiress. Like, this could be it. So he's a little hurt when he finds out that she lied to him. And she's like, well, you wouldn't have even went on a walk with me if I was this. And we're like, yeah, but he also didn't lie about that. Like, he was like telling her who he was right from the beginning. So it's not like he was being sneaky and trying to hoodwink an heiress. Like, he's being very open that that's why he's in town, you know. And then another thing I didn't like is that they end up making a deal that he will help her release her dresses to the world. Like, he'll take her to events so that people can see her clothes if she helps him find a wife. And I hate that. I hate that story. I really do. Like, I've seen it work well sometimes, but particularly when it went on until 70% of the book, he was looking for a different wife because he just didn't know how it could work with the two of them and save his estate. Like, he's just like, I have to have an heiress. Like, I can't let it down, you know? And maybe it's just because I love historicals and I love a duke who needs to save his people, and it just, I don't know. And she just continually kind of spat on that legacy, even when he was trying to be understanding to her dreams. And then they don't figure it out until the last page. So I was just, blah, blah, blah. So Crystal had also read this one, and then she also read the second one, and she kind of jokingly was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I want us to read a book we really, really want to talk about, and not one where we have to dance around the stuff we didn't like. And I was like, you know what? That's fair. So the Rake Appreciation Society is changing our July read from Amaya Rodale to, we're going to be reading The Earl I Ruined by Scarlett Peckham, because her and I both love Scarlett Peckham, and we both haven't read this book yet. We've only read the first one. So sorry to change up on everyone, but we did put it to a vote in the Discord for the Rake Appreciation Society, and no one voted for the Amaya Rodale. So I feel like you guys are cool that we changed our minds. And I'm not saying that I won't never read this author again, because I own books that aren't in this series by her. I have she has a couple other series. So I will definitely still read this author again. Just this Gilded Age series of hers, I couldn't do it. Gilded Age is so hard for it to work for me because it's always the same plot. And I'm like, there are other plots that you can have in New York than the Duke needs an heiress. Like, there are just other plots to do, guys. Okay? There are. So Gilded Age just doesn't work for me usually. But then I read a couple really fun historicals. So I've been saving the Tessa Dare novellas on my Libby app for a while. And I actually listened to 2 of them in one day because they're only like 4-hour audiobooks. And when I have them at 2 times speed, it's like 2 hours each. So I listened to Lord Dashwood Missed Out. I gave this one 4 stars. This one is like childhood friends to enemies to lovers. And Lord Dashwood, he didn't used to be a lord, and he was really good friends with this girl and her brother, and the brother died, and it was kind of like expected that he would probably marry her, but he ended up kind of running away, and, well, not like running away, but he left town instead and became a map maker. And now he's back in town, and she had written these books that were about how he missed out. So she wrote these books called Lord Ashwood Missed Out. And then there becomes a situation where she is going to speak in Spindle Cove about her book. She's going to be going to the bookshop there, and there is a bad storm, and she ends up in a carriage with Lord Dashwood. And this is a little forced proximity novella, and it was cute, and I gave it 4 stars. And then I read The Beauty and the Blacksmith, which I was so excited to read. I've heard only good things about this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was almost perfect. Like, really, for the kind of story that was told, this one was good as a novella because the characters, you know, we have Aaron, who is our blacksmith, and we have Diana, who is one of the Haywood daughters. And pretty much at the beginning of this book, we discover that they've had this flirtation for a couple years. She'll like break different things that are metal to have him patch them, and she'll watch him fix them, and it's really cute. And finally they decide to make a move. And so this is them kind of like courting in secret, and then about how they tell everyone. And it was really precious. And it was the kind of story that I don't think a full-length book that it would have been good, because it would have been too much angst. You know, if they had drawn out the secret dating for a really long time, you wouldn't have liked it. But in a 144-page book, it was the perfect amount of length for that. Then I read Run, Posey, Run by Cate C. Wells. This was a book that Katie Robert read, and she put it on her TikTok, and she's had it on her Instagram. And whenever Katie Robert breaks down a book like this, I know I'm gonna love it. It was the same with like Lady of Rooksgrave Manor, which I freaking loved. This one is a mafia book, but it's about a mafia accountant who is, I would call neuroatypical. He's a psychopath, sociopath, whatever you want to call him. Maybe not neuroatypical, but like within those two. The book actually discusses the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath, and it's very interesting because I think we use those as interchangeable, and they're not. They're different things. But this actually starts with Posy, who is getting broken up with by Dario because he has sent a video of her being fucked. Now, the video is 5 years old. Posy is the daughter of some mafia, but she's been around, and I'm not saying that to shame her, because she is definitely a woman who was looking for love, and so whatever powerful man was her boyfriend at the time, she would let him do whatever he wanted to her, sexually or otherwise. And that was her survival technique. Currently, she's been with Dario for a while, and at the beginning of this, yeah, she gets called into his office and he shows her this tape, and the timestamp has been changed to a date recently when he was away on business. And so he believes she cheated on him. He won't listen to her explain that, like, I don't even look like that anymore. Look, my hair is different. He's like, well, it's a wig or whatever. And he's like, how dare you think you can cheat on me? Leave. I never want to see you again. And he kicks her out. Well, the thing is, he's not the capo to just let someone go. He's the accountant. He's a very brilliant mind for the stocks and for gambling and making them money and all these things. And so he's the guy in charge of the finances, and he can make them $1 million in a drop of a hat, or he can lose it for them. And he banishes her. And one of his men tells Posy, like, you have to get out of town because Dario might have let you go, but the capo, he will not let you go. You know too much. And so she says thank you. She gets rid of her, like, her phone that's being tracked, and she runs. Well, pretty immediately, Dario realizes that he fucked up. He watches the tape again, trying not to have anger involved, and he sees all the things that she said. And then he's pissed that she actually got away from him. And he decides to track her down because he knows that his boss is going to be looking for her, and he's trying to get her back. And Posy is just, like, really being opened up her eyes to the fact of, like, how she's been letting men treat her. But it's kind of a bad time for her to be going through a self-discovery bent, because now there's lots of people trying to kill her. So there's a part of this book where she's on the run. But the part of this book that made this book 6 stars for me, guys, yeah, 6 stars, is because she does end up back with him, obviously. And the conversations that they have about what she's let him do, what he has just thought is okay because she would let him do, he really kind of confronts her with that. And he's like, how should I have known that I wasn't giving you the affection you need or the support that you need when you just do all these things for me? Like, you will just come in and give me any sexual favor that I want without me even asking. And then you act like I've treated you like dirt. Seriously. The first 40% of this book was kind of hard to read because Dario, he is a sociopath. He is unemotional. He just sees this. He sees Posy as his piece of ass. He likes her. He wanted to marry her, but she just does whatever he wants. And so he's like, well, she'll be a good wife to me because I'll just keep her happy by buying her things and she'll be mine. He's never had to confront anything different because Posy has never asked for anything else. So the first part of this book, I was telling my friends, I was like, wow, this is kind of hard to read because whenever you hear your hero talking about your heroine in degrading terms, it's not fun. And I was like, why did Katie Robert love it so much? You know, that actually kept me going because she doesn't steer me wrong in that regards. Like, if this had just been like degrading smut, like, she would have said that. But I was like, why is this working so well for people? And then the second half of the book kicks in. Well, not even the second half. So there's the part where she's gone and then he has her back. And then there's the part where he starts to question her. And she's so angry. She's like, well, how is this my fault? And he's like, I'm not saying it is, but also you haven't told me any different. And so it gets us into these amazing conversations that I don't want to spoil for you. This book is only 255 pages. I could have read 500 pages about this couple. And I understand why Katie Robert binged all of this author's work, and I'm probably going to do the same. She has an MC series and some other ones. But I give this 6 stars because it really was a gut punch. And I'll say this, my dark romance lovers, I think it's a no-brainer. You should absolutely read this. If you love mafia, you love the stuff, amazing. Those of you who are more like on the edge of stuff, I understand that the first part of this book could be really difficult because it was hard for me. But the conversations it leads to and like the emotional depth that this book ended up having, I was not prepared for. And that's when a book gets 6 stars for me because it was excellent in so many ways. And then it also presented this question of like what we value ourselves as and what we're worth and why we accept less than that. And also then why we blame the people who give us less than that when we've never demanded more. It was just, I mean, it's going to make you feel uncomfortable in that respect too, because you're going to be like, wow, what am I just letting people do to me, right? It was great. Through the Ashes by J. Wolfe. I finally finished this one. It took me a while. This is the second book in her, like, high school. I think it's supposed to, I don't know if they're all supposed to be bully ones, because I don't know if the third one's going to be a bully one. But anyway, this one is so complicated of a setup. And I almost didn't finish this book because the first half of it, the bullying part of it, I was not here for it because the heroine, like, wanted him to bully her for reasons. So kind of the setup of this is that Becca, who I freaking love from the first book, like, I was so excited to read her book. Her brother killed Asher's brother, and then he came to her and she, like, helped him, but she didn't know that he killed a guy. And it was just a messed up thing because they were both, those two boys, they were in love with each other, and it was a secret, and they were doing drugs, and that led to this death. And so Asher, his brother who died was his half brother, and his family has kind of, like, moved on from it, and he's not, and he's looking for someone to kind of let this anger out on, and and Bex lets him take it out on her. And it was really, really hard to read. And I had a couple of my friends who were reading it as well, and some of them were giving it really low ratings, and some were giving it very high ratings, and I was tilting more towards the lower rating. And so I stepped away from it from a bit. At about the 60% mark, I stepped away and read a bunch of other books. And then I went back and I was like, I want to finish this one. And there was still some stuff that irked me, but I ended up giving it a 4-star because this one was definitely more emotional. One of the things is that something that I don't love about a bully plot is when there is, like, revenge aspect in it, where a hero is punishing someone for something like her family did, because I've read that quite a few times. I like bullying when it's more just like, I want to mess with your brain. Not, I want to destroy you because I'm hurting. And Bex is also hurting, so she wants him to punish her. So they also fuck around with some BDSM elements. And I am always scared when I see that happen in a new adult book where we're not officially doing kink, but we're fucking with some tough elements of it. So, yeah. Then I read Sweet Temptation. So, okay, these next couple books, I read some of them for the Mafia Readathon already because I started on Thursday. So I'm not going to talk too much about them because the vlog for that is going to go up the day after this. Okay, so I read Sweet Temptation by Cora Reilly. Yes, I know, I haven't read it yet. I've been saving her standalones for such a time as this. And this was 5 stars. I loved it. I didn't know if I was going to love it because I've heard mixed things about the standalones, but I really appreciated this book. This is about Cassio and Julia. This is an age gap. It's a single dad. He has little kids. His wife recently died, and the only even close to marriageable age who is unattached is Julia, who's 17 when they first meet, and they get engaged, and they're going to get married when she's 18. And what I want to say is that if you've read Bound by Honor and Aria annoyed you, I know she doesn't for everyone, but if she annoyed you, I think you'll really like Sweet Temptation because Julia is not Aria, even though the setup is kind of similar, minus Luca didn't have 2 kids already, but Cassio is an underboss, so he's in charge of his area. Sorry. And he has to have that hard exterior. He needs people to respect him, all that stuff. And Julia is thrust into this. She is now a stepmom of very little babies. She's never been around kids before. She's expected to be a wife and a mother and a sexual partner. And this is all just thrown at her. But Julia doesn't whine about it. She questions Cassio. She pushes him. She demands respect and certain courtesies. And she wants to help bear his burdens as long as he won't hide them from her. And I was just so proud of her. I loved Julia so much. And it was so great to see some of my favorite characters. There was a part of this, though, I'm going to tear up when I see it. If you've read the Kimura Chronicles and you love Kiara, So at the beginning of this book, Chiara's only 12. And partway into this book is when they find out her dad is a traitor, and Luca goes on his killing spree, and we hear about it. And Giulia is her older cousin. Okay, Giulia's 18, Chiara's 12. And she begs her parents to take in Chiara, and they don't want to do it because having the daughter of a traitor in their home, it will shame them. And Giulia's like, she's a little girl. She had nothing to do with it. And they're just like, well, we'll take her in, but it'll be fine. And if you've been bound or Twisted Emotions, you know what's about to happen to Chiara when she gets taken in. Because it isn't Giulia's parents who assault, it's a different uncle who hurts Chiara. But I told Crystal, I was like, I just wanted to tell her Nino's coming. Like, Nina will be there someday. Sorry I'm crying, but I just love this world so much. And I shouldn't because they're criminals. But it's fiction. And I just loved seeing Giulia fight for her cousin from afar and just be like, you have to make sure that someone takes care of her. And you just know what's going to happen to her. And it was so, so hard. Even on a fringe thing. Maybe it's just because I'm so close to Twisted Emotions. It's one of my favorite books ever. And I was just like, no, my baby. But anyway. I gave the book 5 stars. I loved it so much. And I didn't think that I would. So that's probably why I loved it as much as I did. I still have Fragile Longing. And that's one I want to read too. But I think that's the one people didn't like as much. I hear a lot of people do love Sweet Temptation. But Fragile Longing, we'll see. I want to read that one too though. Because I love Cora Reilly. Alright. I gotta wrap this up. So I also read Keenan by Jane Henry. This I was not a fan of. I gave this 3 stars. This is a captive Irish mafia. This girl was raised in a lighthouse. Her father kept her hidden away from the world for reasons. And then her father dies and she's basically abandoned because she's never been out in the world before. She's like in her early 20s. She's never seen the world outside. And then these mafia men come to see what's going on at the lighthouse because it's on there, like, in their sector or whatever. And they find this girl and they think that, maybe she's a spy. What does she know? But it becomes clear that she's super innocent and she gets taken captive. And there was a lot of BDSM elements just thrust on her without explanation or her even having knowledge of, like, sex or things like that. And I was really disturbed by it. I don't mind some kink in my books, obviously, but I also need it to be in a controlled and respected thing. And when you are thrusting rules and punishments and rewards on someone who doesn't even know what's going on, I get super uncomfortable. And so this was really tough. But I have heard from people that they like the rest of the series better than this one. So we'll see. But it's one of those where, like, the whole family's into kink, apparently. Like, everyone is a dom. And I just am like, that's not really how, like, kink works. But we'll see. We'll see. Then I read Isn't It Bromantic by Lyssa K. Adams. This was just kind of I'd started this before I started my readathon books. And then after I read Keenan, I just needed to let my brain have a break. So I read Isn't It Bromantic? This book comes out the end of July. This is book 4 in the Bromance Book Club series. This is about Vlad, who's the Russian. He's been married for 6 years to a friend that he basically married her to get her a green card and to get her out of Russia. And at the beginning of this book, she comes to him and asks for a divorce. And then Vlad gets injured pretty horribly, and she moves in with him to take care of him. So this is Forced Proximity, Second Chance Romance. And I gave it 4 stars. I was a little disappointed because I feel like the author herself in the back of the book says she wasn't planning to give Vlad a book. He was just supposed to be kind of comic relief in other books. And you can tell that she kind of hit the brakes and turned directions with the character of Vlad. And yes, there are some things she needed to change. Like, our hero can't have flatulence and be farting and have his dairy allergy happening all the time because it's not sexy. It's real. but he's not sexy. But besides just getting him medicine so he wouldn't be farting and pooping all the time, she changed his character a lot. And I was kind of disappointed because I wanted to see the man that he was wooing this woman who he really has loved his whole life. And when he married her, he didn't make it clear that he wasn't just doing it for friendship. Also, I continue to very much dislike the parts where there's another book added in. I know that's just part of this series, but particularly in this one, it was wasted page time. It was wasted page time, and I didn't enjoy it. But I still gave it 4 stars because it was really heartwarming. But this is a slow burn, and it's one of the reasons that I don't read trade paperback contemporaries very often. But I wanted to continue this story because I liked some of these in the series. Then I read Corrado by Bethany-Kris. This is for the readathon. This is supposed to be an MMF, but it's part of a duet. So in the first half, we only have MM and then MF content. This is mafia. These 2 guys have been having like a secret relationship for 5 years. And now they are, something happens where a woman gets introduced to it. And so this first one had kind of a cliffhanger. I didn't really appreciate the emotional cheating that's going on right now. And it's one of the things that I feel like gives MMF a bad name. Like, it's not my favorite way for an MMF to come about. I've only read one with that trope that I liked it. But I definitely want to read the second half to see how this plays out. And I'm hoping there's some major groveling that happens on the part of one of them. I gave this 4 stars. And then I read Beast by Measha Stone. This is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. This is a captor. It's not really captive though. That's the thing, because she makes the deal to take her father's place and does it. Now, this one also has BDSM involved, but it's explained. And when the female hands herself over, Ellie knows what she's getting involved in. So her fighting and being like pissy about everything that's happening, I didn't have a lot of patience for it, because it's like, you volunteered to come here. He didn't force you. You knew that you would be in sexual servitude. Like, you knew what you were doing. And so when she would fight him so much and cause problems for his business and do these things, I just got a little bit annoyed with her. But then it kind of becomes clear that she's doing some of those things because she wants to get punished. And so then I was like, okay, I see what you're doing. So there's that. And I gave that 4 stars. So there we are. I'm still reading Mafia for the rest of the weekend, but I needed to get this done. And now I need to stop this and turn my air back on before it gets too hot in here. Thank you so much for watching this video. I put up new videos 3 to 4 times a week. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and like this video if you want to see more. And if you want to watch some more, you can do that right now. Have a great day. Bye.